Happy Learning Day, everyone! What's Learning Day, you ask? Why, it's every day. This is Professor Ganesh, and welcome to another episode of Being Prepared. Here's hoping for a fun-filled time full of learning. Here's a funny, weird one this time. Not so long ago, an organization called Whales and Orphans made headlines. It was a charity that supported both whales and orphans. Usually with these kind of sponsored charities send donators information about the creatures they are helping to protect or care for. But in this case, the company would donate entire live whales to orphanages that had no way of taking care of them. So it didn't last all that long, unfortunately. Today we're learning about a very unique being. These beings like you so much they want to be just like you so they can be your friends. They're so very different than you or your other friends that they feel the only way to properly communicate with you on your level is to be more like you. These beings are referred to as Mecrys. No one knows what a Mecry really looks like. As far as anyone's concerned, they look just like someone you know. Maybe even you. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to have a twin brother or sister? You'd look so similar that if you both wore the same clothing, even your friends wouldn't be able to tell you apart. Well, if you came across a Mecry that had taken a liking to how you look, then it would be very similar. They can be very funny and entertaining friends. They learn words and phrases very quickly and do very good impressions of the person they've grown to like and chosen to copy. No one really knows what Mecrys are, what they look like, or why they look just like us. They are a very mysterious being. Even asking them directly wouldn't get you any answers. They'd just as likely ask the same thing to you. All that we know is they are beings that enjoy copying others' looks and how they talk and act. It's been a long-asked question, why Mecrys do what they do and how do they do it? How and why a being can be an almost exact double of someone and do such a good impression of them that they can be mistaken for that person? Why do they want to do such a thing? It is still a mystery. It's nice to not have all the answers sometimes. It can let us consider many different reasons and try to think about the things around us in new, unique and special ways. Mecrys likely learn very quickly from watching others. So if you treat them with kindness and respect, the way you yourself would like to be treated, that's how they'll learn to behave too. Be sure to be polite and courteous to Mecrys so that they can learn this is how they should treat everyone they meet. Act cautiously around unfamiliar Mecrys, just as you would any wild animal. They may scare easily, possibly having learned some bad habits from others. If you discover a Mecry that has taken a liking to you and is presenting themselves as a copy of yourself, there's a few small things to keep in mind. Let people know about the Mecry as soon as you can. This way if they see them acting strangely, they won't think it's you right away. Decide on a code word or movement, like a secret handshake with people you trust, like your parents. Make sure you do this without being watched. Maybe not talking about it out loud and only discussing it through writing. Maybe on a whiteboard. This way, if your Mecry friend tries to play a joke on people you know by performing an impression of you, they would have a way to check if it's really you or not. This would be useful for friends if they need to make sure they know where you are, or if the Mecry is doing something out of character of you, or if your parents need to make sure you know that dinner is ready. While it may seem tempting sometimes, try not to send your Mecry to school or to do chores in your stead. Who knows what mischievousness and mishaps a Mecry may end up having. They might say something unusual to your friends who think it's you, or may not do well on a surprise test. If a friend of yours has a Mecry admirer who now looks like a double, make sure you know which one is the original. Never leave just the two of them together. Remember to have enough bus or train fare if traveling with them tagging along. Don't laugh too much at the Mecry's impressions. Exposing your teeth and making a loud noise might be seen as an aggressive action to the Mecry. Plus you may hurt your friend's feelings. Be sure it's the correct one going home to their parents after you've finished playing. Some ways to tell a micry from a regular person. Their clothing may look strange or like part of their body. Their eyes may not be level, with one hanging down slightly. Expression may feel younger or more innocent to look at. Twitchy movement, followed by perfect stillness. Their eyes may look glassy or unreadable, like there's something hiding behind them. Lack of it. If a micry has replaced one or both of your parents, who have since gone missing. Think about telling someone like a teacher at school or close relative you trust. You may need to have a sleepover for a day or so while the situation at home is straightened out. Would you like to meet a micry that looked just like you or someone you care about? If a micry was pretending to be you, what do you think they'd say and do to convince others that they were you? Talk to the person next to you about it. Well, that was a nice discussion. Speaking of discussion, let's hear what some watchers of the show think.
What are you exactly? A mouse? A rat? Some sort of mouse rat? Theo.
Why hello, Theo, thanks for writing in. First and foremost, I'm your dutiful professor, here to do my best to help you know more about the strange beings you'll wind up running into. If you mean my species, well, there are actually a lot of differences between rats and mice, as I said in a previous broadcast. Rats are much bigger and heavier than mice and tend to have different shaped noses. It largely depends on the subbreed of the rat. I hope that helped clear something up for you, Theo. Though if you're still wondering, I'm a... Oh, I recognize this one. They've written in before.
Hello, Professor Ganache. Me and my friends found this weird fleshy tube out in the woods and thought it'd be cool to try and play jump rope with it. The jump roping was fun, but now this tube is stuck to one of my friend's hands and I think it's going in deeper, but I can't tell. Any advice on what we should do? I said put some dirt on it if that helps.
I'm not so sure if rubbing dirt on anything can help all that much, I'm afraid. I think your best bet would be to make sure an adult gets a good look at your friend and you tell them what happened. Hopefully that's what you did after sending this in, given it likely took a while to reach here and we've had your letter for a while. I do hope they are all better now and that you can get an inorganic jumping rope. Wow, another episode already coming to a close. Where does the time fly off to? I hope it's been an enjoyable and entertaining for all of you at home. This video is sponsored by a company called Freako Depot. They allow anyone to travel anywhere for free. I'm not sure how they do it or how they afford to do it, or sponsor us for that matter, but what a lovely service to provide. I'm not sure how you can support them other than letting others know about them and trying them out sometime. But yes, that's our show for now. I'm Professor Ganache and this has been Being Prepared. I hope the rest of your day is just peachy and learn-tastic. See you next time.
My goodness, where am I?
Oh, you're at the bottom of the ocean, where I am the king. You are welcome. What can I do for you so that you will have a good time here? Do you want to visit Davy Jones's locker?
This is middle management.
Skip out.
And I must apologize for being late. Though it was for reasons outside of my control, as I had to commute here differently than usual. As I started my journey, the ground began to shake, displacing various gargoyle-like icons of Eustanian patriotism from buildings. Bus services were delayed. In an act of desperation, I decided to try the newly established Freeco Depot, which has been advertising themselves as a free transportation system. A rarity for Eustay. Little did I know that Freeco trains, while they do indeed allow passage on them for free, only arrive at Peco depots, which require you to pay to leave the train. Not having the right exorbitant amount on me, I was forced to take the Freeco train back to the station I had started from. From there I made my way here the usual way, which, by the time all this had happened, was clear again. Unlike companies hiding costs in their services, the behavior of animals are becoming still further unpredictable in nature. Theories vary from solar rays to whatever is shaking the ground occasionally to interference from aliens. In other news, it seems the lesser parts of the world, which I am obligated to point out is everywhere outside of Eustay, has decided to learn from our glorious example to start phasing out paper and books. Unlike Eustay, they have not made donation entirely mandatory and to make it illegal to own books. Most have a donation system so their governments are able to utilize the material for fuel. Whether or not this works better than our usual way of setting any paper-based object aflame if we suspect the freedom enforcers arriving remains to be seen. All we know is that they apparently do have less overworked anti-firemen, while our firemen are almost out on the street. Meanwhile, the only development on the books still in circulation is apparently the subject of the book is something to do with thought forms, readers being coerced to set aside 10 minutes of their day to imagine a door. A bound door. And behind it, the friendliest thing you can imagine. One shudders to think of what other sorts of new age anti-authoritarian hippie nonsense has been dribbled onto the pages. It feels like the book is everywhere now, even used to hold up end tables with one leg shorter than the other. One denizen built a house out of them. While on trial, it was argued that they couldn't read the books, given they were connected with concrete, which the board had to admit that yes, it would make them tricky to read. A major book burning is on the waiting list to be instigated. Why we can't use them as fuel like other countries instead is something that evades me. Upper management has sent out for an expert on what the book may be possibly trying to do. We're expecting E-Right any day now to arrive and begin research. For our very first installment of What Do We All Actually Do Here? The Grubber. The Grubbars are kind of food's labor force. They handle heavy lifting and, most importantly, the digging. Grubbars are outfitted with shovel claw gauntlets for digging and semi-decent anti-crush armor. They can take a punch and give one right back if needed. These units are deployed if earth needs to be moved, if fallen walls need to be lifted, and if grabbars need a little bit of protection. Grubbing is not the most glamorous of jobs, but it's a necessary one, and we would all be worse off without them. So, the next time you see a grubbar on their way to a dispatch van, give them a nod and remember that they're doing their job. And so should you. A mixed bag this time, with multiple clues being deployed for different reasons. According to our undercover blabbers of the cuckoo clue, at least when we could finally get off of the phone with them, the Use Eats Company building has now become totally overrun, thus ripe for an insurgency. This is a joint operation. Harris S. Hawk Clue is to stand by as the S. Lapwing Clue goes in first to take out the initial rush. Be aware that anyone and anything that has been touched by the core share the same consciousness. If just one of them sees you coming, all of them will know and will position themselves accordingly. While we do not doubt your expertise in flushing stragglers out and your teamwork, Harris S. Hawk, S. Lapwing is renowned for their speciality of, as they poetically put it, mobbing the hell out of anything pointed out to them. If Harris S. Hawk can get to the more prominently dangerous ones, Fall back and we'll have the shrikes on call. Just give them a wide berth. After they finish, you are the cleanup, taking care of the untouched, the intelligent and the hidden that may be waiting to ambush the magpie and vulture clues as they wander around. The core itself is likely in the ground under the building in a chamber of its own making. Once the grubbers start hitting discolored, dusty, flesh like shale, replace them with pluggers equipped with cheese like spray cans and lighters. Use these only at a distance, as the substance gives off core particles for up to 10 seconds on disturbance. After burning your way into the core chamber, place tarp around the inside of it so the core cannot act in defiance when threatened directly. You will recognize the core, as that is part of how it works. Ignore what you see. Whatever form it is in, that is what the core desires you to perceive. If you find yourself being swayed by its influence, ask yourself why your elderly, dead grandclutcher is smiling at you from their rocking chair half a mile underground in a totally sealed-off chamber of powdery flesh dotted with dendritic spines. Why would they be smiling at you? And, because I am still annoyed from my experience getting here, the swan can finally stretch their wings once more and pay a visit to the Payco depot nearby. They are to be escorted off the Kindo Foods premises by Goshawk to make sure they don't decide to start their work early. They can be quite excitable. No pickup arrangement is necessary. They'll find their way back here after they finish their work. They always do. Likely they won't require guardians on re-entry, as they do tend to go all out when unleashed. If there is any enterprising grabbers looking to get noticed, maybe get a hat upgrade, feel free to pick over what remains of Payco Depot after the swan has returned. Probably bring a grubber and blabber with you. And a lunch. Make a day out of it. And finally, yes, you guessed it, Mirror City again. Not to be confused with the Yatsuwaitik, which can be found following Midnight Reflections. Mirror City is the other one. It may not matter who we send if the other times we dispatch there are to be remembered, despite what the therapists suggest. Whoever feels most up to trying to tackle Mirror City should just turn up on the day and be ready for anything, and have updated their will if they ever had one to begin with. As one that has returned from Mirror City, I can only wish you luck. As we've been seeing more of these soulless, dangerous entities, now is a good time to discuss Mecrys. They have acute pattern-seeking capabilities, able to copy patterns of anything they observe. Speech, shape, movements, behavior, tendencies. One can accurately mimic the mannerisms of a human after only a few minutes of observation. This brings up the uncomfortable question of how exactly complicated people and their personalities really are if all other facets can be derived from a mere few minutes of observation. To what end Mecrys do this and what possible motivations they may or may not have are unknown. Entity, Mecry. Threat level, anywhere between pitchfork and flatworm. Information, Mecrys do not have souls. They are non-sentient. Anything they do or say is nothing but instinctual. Mindless vomiting of observed behavior in the endless hope you will drop your guard for a single moment. They are inherently dangerous and envious of our way of life in you stay, wishing only to destroy that which they cannot possibly have for themselves. Something I am contractually obligated to say. There have always been reports of Mecrys or Mecry-like entities for a long time. But they've moved from myths about mysterious extra camping trip members into a very real phenomenon within the past few decades. No one knows quite what they are or where they came from, or what they want, or what they're made of, or anything, really. They're just here. They could be some sort of unique creature of nature, or oddities, or entities from another dimension that managed to push through into our reality via the thin fabric of reality caused by our last war. They don't require payment, but only follow instructions accurately 36% of the time. Mecrys usually default to mimicking the main predator of the area, which has so far been seen as expected, as humans 98% of the time. Hunted prey animals, such as silent alarm, have been found to have been Mecrys after being shot. These are discovered when it was noticed that they had the completely wrong organs for a silent alarm, and the silent blood was instead made of liquefied leaves. What it had instead were near-exact replicas of the organs later that day found in the hunter that had shot it, though all in the wrong places. It seems Mecrys don't really have a need to eat in the conventional sense, though will do so if observed and expected to. Depending entirely on how the specific Mecry in question's internal makeup is, the barely or over-masticate material could just sit inside any convenient lung, heart, or other organ connected to their trachea. Otherwise, it could be stored in the head or slide down between the errantly disorganized organs before piling up in a leg. Usually foodstuffs are ejected via the back of an ankle or under the foot while walking somewhere. Hard to notice the process and leavings. Material discarded in this way is exactly the same as it was before ingestion, aside from being chewed and all color having been drained from it. Why this is or what it means is still up to speculation. There are several entities that may or may not be related to Mecrys genetically, given their genetics have so far been impossible to understand or even find. These offshoots have been considered so due to their similar mimicking behavior, rather than any official relation to Mecrys. We'll go through them now for the record in case it's of any help down the line in your dispatches. Entity offshoot. Alliterators. Threat level. Beetle. Information. Are able to read the minds of all those around them, human, animal, or anything before, between or beyond. Unlike Mecrys, they settle on one target at a time rather than attempt to blend into society for reasons unknown. Operating purely on instinct and with little to no intelligence of their own, alliterators cannot understand the context or compartmentalize that and involved in there would possibly be prey's thoughts. It is not known exactly how their telepathy works, or how deep it goes. Those being read generally gain a feeling of being watched from the inside out, with heightened anxiety and furtiveness. This could be an instinctual reaction, or perhaps the telepathy works both ways and the feeling they are getting is in reaction to sharing thoughts with the thoughtless. Some people have reported that illiterators mimic their most recent throwaway surface level thought in hopes of gaining their trust or interest. Given it was about, they did not find it very convincing. Others have said they've been accosted by illiterators trying to be fictional characters they know of, like Mace Attorney, Easter Knight, James Bone, Dave from the Pave with Dave video game series, or Professor Ganache. Entity offshoot. D-lure. Threat level. Leech. Information. D-lures are specific sort of Mecrys that take advantage of the human folly of heroism. Their cry is likened to that of being similar to a screaming child muffled through a door. All D-lures make the exact same sound as each other. D-lures are attracted to burning, crumbling buildings and other emergency situations that would be likely to have people in need of rescue. The presumed hunting is done by use of ambush tactics. D-lure hide behind doors, their screaming cry attracting would-be heroes to attempt to rescue what they think is a panicking, trapped child. It holds an unlocked door closed while screaming the same exact cry before suddenly moving away from it to allow their possible prey, who is trying to knock the door in, to fall into the room, stunned. This is when the D-lure makes their move. Related entity. Mimic infection type O. Override R. Threat level. Maggot. Beetle. Information. The mimic infection override R is caused by an unknown viral, bacteria or animal agent which slowly converts the host's brain, often without being noticed. It is impossible to be sure exactly what the status of the original host is after full conversion. Originally it was thought that the override R lay dormant, observing the host continue as normal. Then, for some unknown reason or trigger, It seizes control, tempting to mimic the host's observed behavior to complete some nonsensical task before receding again. As technology has progressed, better recordings and more sightings of the infection have led us to the current theory that this is indeed correct, but only up to a point. What has been discovered, though, is that when overridden once, the host is entirely overcome. Any ability to control oneself is entirely wrested from them and taken permanently by the overrider, never to be returned. Whether or not the host remains aware of themselves or the actions of the override are after this is entirely unknown. The brain, or organ used as a brain by the host, is completely changed by this point. Perhaps the lingering control isn't even intended by the override or infection. The longer that someone has been overridden, the more obvious it becomes. The thinking engine of a host overtaken begins to record and process information differently. This results in fragmentation and corruption of the original memories, causing an overridden to become increasingly incoherent. They can change from somewhat convincing facsimile to a twitching, incoherent lunatic, to a mindless, expressionless zombie with their arms out trying to grab people within a few weeks. As the agent causing the phenomenon is yet to be discovered, lobotomies appear to be the only cure. That, or the pulverizing of the brain, as well as a few specific organs that become backup brains during an infection, each with different agendas if they become the main control organ. The state and function of the converted organs are classified, and any relation to the core is merely conjecture. In fact, the term infection is a misnomer, but used to keep those like Joe Public calm, as the idea that it's a sleeper agent process beyond all objectionable science would cause panic, and worse, cause people to start asking questions. Similar to illiterate readers, despite having full access to the entire personality, habits and memories the host has had, an overrider cannot understand or contextualize them. A newly overridden host is when it's at its most dangerous, as mimic infection overriders often violently panic if questioned or doubted, which is very likely to happen once they activate. An overridden's personality is fairly easy to spot, especially with their specific need of... Moving back to what we consider regular Mecrys. Mecrys, though generally rare, have no specific, expected habitats, and may appear anywhere at any time. The outer wilderness, office buildings, underground, city streets, campsites, cafeterias, graveyards, your kitchenette right this second, they could be anywhere. It is uncertain what Mecrys want. Theories range vastly from the crude to the absurd. The most common, sensible ones include a desire to lure targets away from others for sustenance, integrate into society, learning from us before overthrowing us all, then creating their own society, have company. There has even been a somewhat popular theory that Mecrys have no motivation whatsoever and they simply exist, doing what they do with no explanation. There are no set behaviors that all Mecry exhibit. However, there have been noticeable patterns in previous reports, each with a different likelihood of success depending on many differing factors. Yelling a lot of random phrases they previously heard with no context, often done by the less experienced Mecry. Screaming for help. Situational, especially if there have been man sightings reported, as they have been known to fake injury for sympathy. Silently joining a group, likely leaving before being noticed, though this can take some time. Luring a target away, then returning to where they last were, pretending to be the target. While Mecrys are usually very talented in mimicry, there are usually signs accompanying one's appearance. A sudden total lack of ambient natural sound if dispatched to a forest, jungle, playground, park or backyard. Animals avoid Mecrys at all costs. The smell of metallic, necrotic tissue tends to be perceived before a Mecry appearance. It can be assumed this smell occurs during a Mecry's transformation into a target. Mecry transformation has yet to be proven, some postulating that Mecrys simply exist looking like their mimicry target. In the moment, you may not realize you have seen a Mecry, as it's been reported that they seem to have faces one can't remember clearly, or really even see. Clothing. Clothing can look somewhat scuffed, with easily missed details not being quite right on smaller features. Clothes feel either organically warm or unnaturally cold. Clothing is part of the skin, so the insides of sleeves, skirts or trousers would go inside only some way before connecting to the skin. Behavior. Not talking as much as you would expect from the person they've replaced. Occasionally talking backwards. Overly general answers or avoiding questions. Always avoid cameras and visually recording equipment. Very rarely alone. Mecrys get something out of being near others, though it is unknown what that is. Not being seen with the object of their mimicry. It is said that a Mecry copying a still living target is usually within 20 feet or 3 meters of them at all times, depending which of the measurement types the target uses. Finding any opportunity to replace their counterpart. If in an office or work setting, assuming they've not gone missing, Mecrys can predict behavior of their target extremely well. For instance, knowing when they emerge from the broom closet to take over at their desk when the original has left for their weekly state-mandated restroom break. Movements can be fast, jarring and sudden if it considers the movement unlikely to be seen or noticed. This type of movement seems to be more the natural way Mecrys move, with a smoother locomotion requiring extra energy and concentration. Empaths will feel either absolutely no emotion or even a void of feeling from a Mecry even if it is performing something that one would consider emotional. Other reports are that the emotion from Mecrys comes across in unnatural waves, confused and erratically switching between the entire spectrum of emotion either at random or in some code we have yet to understand. Face. Mecrys can mimic expressions, but often change them too quickly or slowly, with each part of the face being pulled one at a time until the expression sets, unmoving, until it drops back to default like a curtain. Unable to smile correctly, all Mecrys are able to manage is the showing of teeth, which can be anything between a near-perfect duplication of who they are mimicking, or all lateral incisors, canines or third molars, occasionally from a different animal. Even the seemingly perfectly duplicated teeth are usually almost paper-thin. There is a natural aversion to looking into their eyes. This could either be a natural reaction in others, or Mecrys cause this intentionally as they can never get eyes to look correct. If one were to observe a Mecry eye, they would note that they look less complex than expected, such as missing the iris, being the wrong color or shape, being exactly and consistently twice the size of the pupil at all times. The inverse of this, with the iris appearing in the middle of the pupil. The caruncle's placement being random at times or not present. In a recent extreme case, a blood-stained Mecry was discovered with eyes described as looking like a scribbles on gray papery looking sclera, almost being mistaken for a slasher. The main cry was destroyed for potentially utilizing paper. Organs are either absent, in the wrong place, or occasionally possess organs not found in the body the Mecry is mimicking, some being animal, insectile, and orient, or imaginary. Eyeballs can look either overly rounded or entirely flat. Mecry eyes have been known to almost fall out, bulge or shift, revealing dark pits behind them. Reacting poorly to relaxants and stimulants. It is theorized that Mecrys are ever vigilant and their form takes constant effort, having to control all autonomic functions manually, take in their surroundings and be ready to react to any stimuli with learned nonsensical patterns and rituals to appease any witnesses. After being dosed with relaxants, a number of different things may occur. They become more lax in their mimicry, leading to either under or overcompensating with hardness of bone structures. This can lead to limbs becoming pendulous, bending and squishing in unnatural ways. For instance, a Mecry after being given churn of smilety may attempt to move their arm up, the result being the bicep moves as expected, but the forearm lags behind it, being bonelessly pulled like a wet towel. This can happen to any part of the body, including the neck, eyes, and even the head. The opposite can also happen. The falx bones become brittle, the connective tissue between them, originally to allow movement, becomes solid. This results in every action taken requiring more effort. This causes shaky, strained attempts at moving, which end with sudden, jerky movements accompanied by crunching and snapping sounds as they break their own skeletal structure. Movement compensation is also affected, moving their limbs and head not enough or much too far, breaking their own neck without noticing or reacting. Muscles or organs may change size or twist to extreme degrees, making the mimicry harder to believe. This counts for expression work as well. The eyes may fall and dangle from sockets or recede to the point of pulverization into the head, leaving two black pits, or the lips may pull back revealing every tooth in their head. Ways to identify an undisguised micry. Unknown. Even dissection cannot help us identify a micry. There has never been found any sort of core organ or material that controls the flesh or, presumably, transforms it. Under all of the mimic flesh and mannerisms leaves us with nothing there. Starting with the possible offshoots. Lip readers. Do. Memorize an original phrase or image that only you know of and tell nobody. If anyone aside from a member of the government or freedom enforcers reference it, assume it is a hostile entity and act accordingly. Always assume that if something seems too good to be true, then it is a malicious entity bent on deceiving you and distracting you from your work as a productive member of Kindo Foods and you stay. This applies to elite readers as well. Don't trust anyone. Be lure. Do. Avoid performing any heroics. Avoid anywhere that features crying children. Don't attempt to rescue crying children in buildings currently undergoing a disaster. Mimic infection type O. Override R. Do. Make sure your thinking object remains consistent in size and shape. If you believe yourself to have an override or waiting to take over on a specific, unknown trigger, consider locking yourself in a room and not thinking about anything. Maybe it will get bored and stop. Not get infected with the mimic infection type O. Override R. Don't get infected with the mimic infection type O. Override R. Now with the main subject of this broadcast. Do. Keep track of how many there are in your clue and perform head or head adjacent checks every 10 to 15 minutes. If you count any extras, get a co-worker better at counting to do it for you. If they start counting backwards, you've identified the micry. Each decide on and share with each other a code word for each head check to prove you are the same clue member that left the building earlier. Do not use the same word twice, as micries will observe the word and use it after insinuating themselves amongst you. Keep an eye on anyone you suspect to be a micry. If you see one wandering off unnoticed towards an area of cover that you suspect another micry may be behind, abort the dispatch immediately. Give them relaxants if you wish to render it less harmful and more amusing and or disturbing. Please take this time to be reminded that filming while out on dispatch for reasons other than prosperity of the company is forbidden. Don't divulge sensitive information about yourself or the company. Assume your safety at any time. Micries can and will act unpredictably. This extends to during dissections. They do not adhere to the signs of life. They ignore respiration, reproduction, breathing, and creating. Remember that seemingly inert matter of a micry can reanimate at any time with little to no warning. This is the reason there are so little micry samples in research labs. Eat the flesh of a micry, even if it was found masquerading as a prey animal. Check the insides for organs connected to featureless internal walls, themselves or openings hanging loosely within. Give them stimulants. For the upcoming mandatory movie monitoring Moon Day, there is a brand new one coming out. The plot is as follows. A group of scientific explorers are involuntarily trapped in a secret lab. Accidents start to happen. It's assumed this is because of a ghost of science. Those trapped begin to perish one by one under strange circumstances. It's realized that one of those trapped had an ulterior motive, and is working for the force keeping them there. The Estanian member of the group saves the day. Here is Kindo Food as resident propagandist artificer their new method of generating capital aside from our usual governmental grants. Artificer, if you please.
Thank you, middle management Scapulch. Now, the idea of spending money with the abject hope of making more money by convincing someone stupider than you to spend money isn't anything new. There are always a certain breed of idiots that think they know business and want to play investor, just like their daddykins. While these people are disgusting, their money, however, can be wrested and rescued by my newest venture, cryptocurrency. That is correct. These bros, as they would call themselves, can be convinced to become crypt bros, buying and selling crypt spaces, but not here, in space. We all know that the UGB, the UST government body, already owns outer space for advertising purposes, but selling crypt space on our moons and planets is quite the victimless crime. The Mentalum moon, with all of its connecting craters passing through the entire structure, is a perfect example of this. Holes already dug and waiting. There's already technology that employs creative use of the holes to amplify certain ways to observe the universe. So what better offer can there be for these main character morons than their potential final resting place after any and all results from utilizing it? Failing that, there's always space on the mysterious Linoland planet, covered in lino tiles with the atmosphere that dampens all color to black and white, the perfectly moody place to stay and be easily spotted by book-fueled telescopes. Plus they would be some of the first to find out what's actually under all that lino once we can reach it and grub it up. So yes, crypt bros buy and sell imaginary plots of land and space for crypts to house their disgusting bodies once they're through with them, each hoping to make a profit playing hot green hot trademark with the investment.
Well, I can't say I exactly understand how or what you're selling. But if it's bringing in Allah for the company, then I am sure they're happy about it. Speaking of the company, there has been a surprising new development. President has decreed a new stance on the Mecrys policy via interpreted vermicompost. It roughly translates to, work him. In light of this, I shall amend what was just stated before, changing the shoot the Mecrys in the head policy to the new see nothing, say nothing campaign. Do. See if you can convince Mecrys to obtain materials in dangerous areas in lieu of your more gullible teammates. Do so by pantomiming desired action while having your co-workers cheer you on. If they seem eager to please and or fit in, give them the opportunity to board the dispatch van with you and bring them to headquarters for processing. This broadcast's affirmation and reminder is as follows. Remember to retrieve any lost limbs of co-workers, entities, innocent bystanders, guilty to walkers or your own, and deposit them into the lost, strewn, and sown bin on the side of the building before clocking out for the work cycle. I believe that's everything for this one. Oh, the intern says hello in the usual annoying fashion. Amazingly, they volunteered to go to Mirror City. They are far too modest to admit they signed up. Quite emphatic that they didn't, in fact.